Hi everyone and welcome to Growth Leap. I'm your host Michel Gagnon. We talk to pretty awesome business builders who are designing disruptive and meaningful companies. Hello everyone, we're back for another episode of Growth Leap. Today we welcome Jimmy Coleman, founder of Leadballer, a US-based agency. The company offers a done-for-you service that generates enterprise-level leads without any ad spend. And it's been doing well. The company has more than doubled its size over the past 2 years. Jimmy is a very talented salesman with a big heart, which is not always a combination that we're used to. He's developed over the years a highly effective lead generation strategy on LinkedIn, and he shares it all. We talk about the numbers game, his outbound process that beats advertising, his trick to finding the right prospects, and his idea about making lead generation for good. Enjoy and welcome back. Jimmy Coleman, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm wonderful, man. So happy to be here.
Let's start by you giving us a quick rundown of what Leadballer is, the service you provide, and how different you are from other agencies.
Sure thing. When I'm doing like an elevator pitch, I'll typically say we specialize in working with enterprise sales teams, really just to get them more conversations with enterprise decision makers. A perfect client for us is typically someone who feels really good about their delivery and what they're selling. And they feel really good about, when they get in front of a decision maker, being able to rock their world and close them. But they just say, I just need more at bats. I need more opportunities to have those conversations. And fortunately, the way that we tend to reach out to people, it's specifically made to reach out to those people that have the authority to make a $30,000 decision, $300,000. I'm in conversations with companies right now that it might be multiple seven-figure opportunities. And so obviously the type of campaign you put together for people that can make that level of an impact is very different than someone that's going to be $1,000 lifetime value or something like that.
You specialize, if I'm not mistaken, in lead generation on LinkedIn, among other things. Can you tell us a bit about your strategy and process, which is quite interesting?
Absolutely. Yeah. And this kind of explains the name Leadballer, which it's a fun name. It's funny how we talk about, we're specializing in these like really high end sales, and then our name is Leadballer, but yeah, we do like to have fun. So where this all came about is I used to be a high performing sales guy. And I essentially had a lot of people starting to ask me how I was getting meetings with people, not just from doing the traditional methods. And I was doing all those things. I was still playing the numbers game over there, making the phone calls and stuff. But in addition to that, I was reaching out to people on LinkedIn and having a lot of success. And people started asking a lot of questions of what I'm doing to make that happen. So much to the point where I started getting paid to teach people that process. And then I became frustrated with teaching people because most of the time they wouldn't actually do anything. So I built out an agency where we just do it for people. When someone does a good job of approaching me, I think about what worked and what didn't work. And there's been a lot of trial and error, but essentially the go-to process is something like this. Step one is building a list of people that would be qualified for you to talk to. Something that we do a really good job of is not just settling for whatever sales navigator spits back at us. We pay a lot of money for third-party data companies to give us some really high-end and really good quality lists. So we build that list like anyone else would, but then that's where it changes. So we reach out to connect to those people on that list. But when they agree to connect with one of my clients, we're not just going to immediately shoot them this 3-paragraph like, hey, auto-populated name, thought you had a really interesting looking profile, 3-paragraph sales pitch calendar link.
I've never received one of them.
Oh, never? Yeah, not 5 times a day? Yeah. Everyone's like talking about like that's their personalized copy, but we'll get to how we can personalize it more here pretty soon. But the reason that you especially wouldn't want to do that with someone that can make a $100,000 decision, for example, is because the way that you approach them at one time might ruin the opportunity forever. So you have to really, there's this dance to it. There's an art to how you approach them in the right way, but also be really aggressive playing the numbers game, right? So, because I'm a big fan of the numbers game.
You'll hear us talk about the numbers game quite a bit. Just to be clear, Jimmy is referring to the numbers you will find in each step of your sales funnel. From the number of people you cold call to the numbers of decision makers you speak to, the demos you organize, the proposals you send, and the deals that you ultimately close. If you understand the conversion rate at each step and want to increase your revenues, you can simply increase the numbers of people that you reach out to at the top of the funnel. Some people will tell you that sales is so much more complicated than the numbers game. It's the way you pitch, it's the way you close, it's the way you approach your prospects. Yes, many of these things are true, but the numbers game brings you effectiveness, diligence, and consistency.
So essentially what we'll do is we'll use a base system, and this explains the name lead baller. So when someone is cold, but they've agreed to connect, they're at bat. When we have done something to show up in their notifications, we'll put them at first base. And by the way, the reason we chose notifications over your timeline, because we could post content, but that leaves it a chance that person has seen your name and face. Showing up in someone's notifications, that little red dot is the most addicting thing on any social media platform. That's where you want to show up, right? So we'll show up in the prospect's notifications for our client, and then we'll do it again. And then that person's on second base. And then we'll do it again. That person's on third base. Examples of ways to show up in notifications could be anywhere from wishing someone happy birthday to endorsing them for a skill to liking a post, liking a comment, reacting to a post, and commenting on a post, so on and so forth. And you do these things to show up the notifications. And then once they've seen your name and face a few times, then we reach out to them. And when we reach out to them, we're actually going to be using a different vehicle beyond text, because text can blend in with all the bots that are doing this automatically. But there's certain things that when someone sees in their inbox, they don't assume that's being sent to thousands of other people. So right now, we're the only company in the world sending audio messages at scale on LinkedIn. And this is where we really like to specialize. Like, what are the things that could not be automated, and how do we kind of disrupt that a little bit? So our client might send us a recorded audio message saying, hey, you probably noticed I've been checking out your profile over the past couple of weeks. And I actually saw that you are a VP of sales. And we actually just got another VP of sales X result last month. And obviously I have no idea whether we could do the same thing for you, but what do you think about, I don't know, just connecting for 15 minutes next week with me or my team and just seeing if there's an opportunity for us to work together someday? And recording, send that to my team. We have a list of VPs of sales that we send that to, and it feels personalized for that person. We also have the ability to send video messages where we'll put the prospect's name on a sheet of paper. And if it's going to Susie, it'll say, hey, Susie in the thumbnail. If it's going to Robert, it'll say, hey, Robert in the thumbnail. And every single day, we're running this on my profile. I get 3 to 5 messages a day of people either saying yes or no, but always starting off with, wow, that's a really cool way that you reached out to me. I've never received a message like that before. And then either letting me down gently and saying, no, I'm too busy right now, or saying, yeah, let's talk. And that's like the best of both worlds. I think we were talking a little bit before the recording of this combination of being really aggressive, right? And you use like the word shark, right? Which has a negative connotation, but at the same time, doing it in a way that is well received and authentic. I think that a lot of people say negative things about the numbers game because they don't want to put in the work to play the numbers game. But the growth of your business, I believe, is a direct reflection of the number of people you ask to do business with you every single day. And then all the other stuff, the content, the branding, is what creates efficiency in your outreach. If they've seen your name and face before, then you'll have a better conversion. If maybe they haven't seen your name and face before, but when they look into you and they see your stuff, and they like it, then you'll have a better conversion. If you don't have anything extra and you're just relying on a really good 30-second elevator pitch, then you're going to have a lower conversion, but done is better than perfect still. I'm a huge fan of how can we crack that code of being aggressive, attacking the marketplace, getting what you want in life and playing the numbers game, but doing it in a way where the recipient doesn't feel like a number.
I'm curious, how did you develop that process? Where is that coming from? And also, how does that relate to the numbers game that we've talked about a bit earlier?
This process came from when I was a sales rep, when I was at Northwestern Mutual selling insurance. We had this, hey, make 40 phone calls every day. I think you'll get 10 people to answer, 5 will schedule, and you'll keep 3. That's the numbers that they run. But I found out that I was the only person that made 40 phone calls every day. We would have these like monthly meetings where we brought in everyone from the entire state of Virginia. That's where I was at the time. I had twice as much activity as the second person that had the next most activity. And I was just making the minimum number of calls they asked me to make. And I was doing this LinkedIn process of reaching out to people in addition to that, because I wanted to get the right people as well. If you're a salesperson listening to this, or you're a person that has salespeople on your team, I don't really think there is much of an excuse. And the sale that we make, if we're trying to tell people to delegate this off of their sales team and to us, is how would your salespeople be spending their time if this part was taken care of? But I do agree that's a bit of a luxury. It's all sequential, right? If you're starting with $0, you can have a free LinkedIn account and reach out to people every single day. When I was in that position, I promised myself I'm going to make 40 phone calls every day. I was thinking about actually my future wife and my future kids that I would have someday. How am I going to tell them that I worked my hardest if I'm not at least doing what the company told me I need to do to be successful? So I'm going to make these 40 calls. And you know what? If I only have 35 phone numbers, then I have to do the awkward thing of calling 5 of those people back again and being like, hey, what do you think? Like just trying it again. And I never had to do that because I always dug deeper to find more people to contact.
Jimmy's telling us what many do not want to hear. You need to do the work to get the results. But too often we ignore that advice. Some people tend to think that you can automate your way to greatness. But in business and sales, there is so much to learn by pitching a lot, especially when you're just getting started. You learn about the most frequent objections, you get direct feedback on your product and value proposition, and most importantly, you build your resilience. There is nothing like getting 10 no's in a row and the insights that come with those rejections. Jimmy mentioned another critical point, which is the importance of targets and consistency. So set those targets, commit, and then make the calls. Well, today you have a process that is a lot more sophisticated than just reaching out to people on your prospects list. What did you discover while you were testing this approach that ultimately led you to the system that you have today?
So originally what I did was this. I would just promise myself to send out a certain number of connection requests per day. Of the people that accepted, I would endorse all of them every day for skills. And actually, I would endorse them and more people. I would endorse 50 people per day. Here's what I realized. You'll like this. When you endorse someone on LinkedIn, what happens is they receive a notification. That's, again, the most addicting section on someone's social media. It is free to show up there. You don't have to run ads to show up there. And I thought that was so cool. And what you can also do is if you want to take up a lot of ad space, you can endorse them for something, comment on a post, comment on 8 posts if you want, and then just dominate their notifications and be like, oh my gosh, who is this guy? All I had to do is go to someone's profile, click the plus sign next to someone's skill, and I automatically showed up in their notifications. And not just that, not just the awareness of my name and face, but there's also a call to action to say thanks, right? And not only is there a call to action to say thanks, but as soon as someone clicks it, the message thread pops up and it already has a message typed out so that all that person has to do is click send. So the way I saw that was every single day, if I endorse 50 people a day, that's 50 people that are my A+ prospects that are 2 clicks away from beginning a conversation with me before I ever have to do any kind of outreach to them. And that actually became my process at first. And eventually I got better with it because I realized, hey, there's certain people that just need to be asked to the dance first. And they need you to actually send them a message, even though they have been seeing you all over the place. So we built that into the process where, yes, we do outbound messaging as well. But originally, I would just endorse 50 people a day and have 10, 15, 20 plus people every day saying, thanks for endorsing me. And then I would respond back saying, hey, sure thing. By the way, saw that you're into whatever. I just help someone else that's into whatever, get X result and do my thing from there. But it just made the conversation so much easier. And again, it goes back to how do you be really aggressive, but do it in a very authentic way or do it in a way where the recipient doesn't feel like a number. And that's where it all began.
I'm sure that in your sales career, you've probably discovered tricks on making sure that you are targeting the right folks. I frequently say that the best thing that you can do is to actually disqualify people as fast as you can. Do you have any advice or lessons learned from your experience and what you do at Leadballer to be able to target the right people? Because some people will just never go to the third base because they're just the wrong people.
Yeah, I always say that to potential clients because sometimes clients have a list ready for us and it's just a matter of whether our process works or not. And I'm not worried about that. So it really does come down to, hey, are we filling the pipeline with the right people? And yeah, that is really important. I think I've been using LinkedIn in this case for this type of process for 7 years prospecting. And I've made a lot of mistakes. When you reach out to CEOs on LinkedIn, you'll get anywhere from like the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar organization and the kid at Target who has a side hustle that they're the CEO of, but hasn't made a sale ever before, right? So then you learn not to type in founder or CEO, but words like co-founder. Not a lot of people pretend to be a co-founder, or not a lot of people pretend to be a CFO. And so you have to start thinking more of that way of what are job titles that people don't create as a status symbol. Chief revenue officers. You can get really granular in that. And I always tell people, create a list that is broad to your liking, and then look at the search results. And based on the search results, look for someone that is the avatar. Wow, that is a person that if I could clone them, I totally would do that. And study their profile. Go to their profile and look for keywords on their profile. Sometimes there's things like certifications that they've received. I'll give you an example. When I was at a medical startup, we liked working with independent physician practices versus hospital-owned practices. And we actually found that it wasn't usually the physician that was the decision maker, but it was the person managing that office, the office manager. And through doing that method I just shared of trying to find people through this broad stroke search, and then looking at the search results and seeing who I liked and why I liked them, I saw that there's a certification called CMPE, Certified Medical Practice Expert. If someone has that, they are golden. And what's also great is that collection of letters aren't on anyone else's profile unless they are my ideal client. And we can get into a lot of specifics, but if you just copy that method of doing a broad search, looking at the search results, finding the avatar, and then looking for keywords on the avatar's profile and then duplicating them that's a great method.
Many people say that a good salesperson can sell you anything. In tech, which is really the industry that I'm in, people tend to say, just build the right product, a product that people will love, and then you don't even need a sales team. When you work with your clients, is their actual product or service something that you consider seriously when you agree to work with them?
Yeah, if someone doesn't have a good product, then yeah, it's really hard for us to help them. If they don't have case studies of how they've gotten an amazing result for someone. That's people who get the best results, by the way. And I actually tell people when they're creating their audio or video message to say something that if the recipient doesn't respond to it, they should almost lose their job. I was helping another marketing company that does everything except for what we do. And he was saying, it is so hard to pitch people marketing services. It's so not sexy. And he was beating himself up. And I said, okay, cool. Tell me a result that you recently got, like a really cool result you've recently gotten for someone. Because of our services, there's a dentist that just had a $9 million exit. And I said, okay, so let's do this now. When you reach out to someone, we're not going to talk about marketing. We're going to say, hey, you probably noticed I've been checking out your profile the past couple of days. And I actually noticed that you're a dentist. We literally just a couple months ago helped another dentist have a 9-figure exit. And obviously I have no idea whether I could do the same thing for you, but would it make sense to just hop on a call for 15 minutes and see if there's an opportunity for us to help out or work together? Can you imagine being a dentist and hearing that and then saying no to that? That's something that's so valuable for you to hear. But it comes down to knowing what problems they have. Getting back to your original question about just focus on the product versus focus on the marketing. Yes, have an amazing product, but it's a reality that you have money that's being left on the table by not reaching out to people. That's just the reality of it. You have to create awareness of the product, and there will be word of mouth. A lot of people come to us when word of mouth is no longer scalable. Like they've hired employees and now they need to have predictable sales in their business, and word of mouth is not predictable. Long term, you'll be good, sure. But ideally, month over month, they would like to be growing on a systematic basis so they can make more strategic decisions throughout the rest of their company. And having a consistent outreach and marketing process is what affords them to do that.
If you did not notice, Jimmy just talked about results. Results someone generated for his or her clients. He did not talk about the features. In your marketing and sales pitch, your prospects want to know what you can do for them, not how many people are on your team or if your product has dark mode. They're looking for a solution to their problem now. So show them how you can help them get the results that they want, and show them how you've done that in the past for others. Many companies do a poor job of handing over leads from marketing to sales to account management, customer success. In your case, you're bringing in potential money on the table, and then potentially that money sits in somebody's inbox. From your experience, are there any typical mistakes that you've identified or noticed that companies are repeatedly making?
Time kills deals. right? I do have a funny story of a guy. He made like $200,000 working with us. It was like one sale that he made $200,000 and it was 5 weeks in. He said, it took me 3 weeks to notice that they sent me a message and respond to them. So he got lucky because time really does kill deals. And so there's some people that as the person responds, they see the response come in and they pounce on it. They are just on top of it. Typically, if someone has a dedicated salesperson, the dedicated salesperson should be trained on that. The other area of opportunity is that it's not usually black and white when we're reaching out to people. It's not that we're sending a bunch of outreach to people and that they're saying every time 100% no or 100% yes. Oftentimes, there's a lot of gray in between. Sometimes I would call like level 7 interested. This is a really unique approach. We might be able to make some time for a conversation, but they don't offer a date or time or anything like that. And then some people might be a 4 out of 10, where they might say, hey, this is a cool approach, but I'm just super busy right now or something like that. And we've noticed that there's some clients that are just better at converting those 4 out of 10s than others. Some people just don't have the salesmanship to have recognized that objection has come their way 1,000 times before and that they know what to do when it comes to them. A really common example is whenever I'm working with a consultant or a coach where they're amazing at what they're an expert in, but selling their own thing is really difficult for them. And that's a common market that really struggles on overcoming objections, especially because they are the product and it's easier for someone else to sell them than for them to sell them. But I would say that the main two things is, yes, time kills deals. And then someone just having the salesmanship of knowing how to overcome. And I even call it being opportunistic, because there's times when people straight up tell us no. And we've trained our team to not act like how everyone else does, where they have a boss that's breathing down their neck and saying they need to book 10 appointments today or else. Because oftentimes those people will just, when they get a no, they'll just go on to the next one, or they'll just treat it like very transactional. Treat this person like a human being. Don't just do a drive-by ask. And if they say no, just like speed off. Like you have them, they've responded to you. You're in a conversation with them. So go to their profile, send them a book recommendation. I've run out of sharing limits on Audible. I realized that there's a cap on how many times you can share a book a certain number of times. That's one of my like go-to things is how can I add value to this person? But when everyone else is being really transactional, if you do something to just be a real human being with the person, you'll stand out from the crowd. And who knows what that might turn into.
We've briefly discussed, as you said before the call, that you've been a hardcore salesman starting your career, I think, at Cutco selling knives.
Yeah.
Then Northwest Mutual, which is a pretty cool story. But when we think about hardcore salespeople, empathy, authenticity are not necessarily terms that come to mind. As we said, it's more like we think about sharks. But you've come to have a much more authentic approach to selling. And I'm interested to know how and why you've come to that.
I know how much better I can be in a certain area, whether it's my health, whether it's my financial situation, whether it's how much impact I'm making, how good of a husband I'm being, how good of a father I am, all those things. And I know that I can do better. And I'm just not there yet. And that gets me down, gets me frustrated. And then I think the other thing is how I'm spending my time going to even matter 100 years from now. If I don't have a good answer to that question, I get really anxious and I need to figure out a path towards spending it the right way. That being said, using an authentic approach, I think it happened enough times where I caught myself spending a lot of my time with people that I just wasn't enjoying spending time with. I realized that if I do a better job of just being honest about who I am, then I'm going to attract the right people into my life. And I think a lot of people, if they go to my LinkedIn profile, point back to my about section or my vision statement that I have on there. And the context for that is that one day I was feeling down and I didn't like the situation that I was in. And I said, if I'm not being intentional with whether what I'm doing is getting me to where I want to go, then I'm going to waste decades of my life. So I need to write down where I want to go. And I started just writing down everything that I wanted selfishly and also vulnerably, because I never expected to share this list with anybody. And 2 weeks later, I'm in a mastermind and the guy said, hey, I want you guys to create a vision statement and I want you to share it with the group. It took what I had in my notebook, typed it up, clicked the send button. And I remember how good it felt as soon as I did it. I felt like every person that's in that small group knows what my intentions are. and what matters to me most. And if they like me, it's for the right reasons. And that is such a good feeling. And I eventually worked up the courage to take that same list of things and erase my previous about section on LinkedIn, which is what everyone else has of here's why I'm the best, right? So I put all these things in my about section, and at least one time a week, I have people that will go to my profile, read a line on there, and then send me a message and say, hey, the thing you said about taking care of your wife, that really connected with me. We're starting the relationship, not from this weird, hey, how you doing? Talking about weather and all these cliche things. You did this before we jumped on the podcast. Like you already knew those things about me. So we're already able to begin the relationship at a different level. And by the way, you probably would not have wanted to interview me for this, knowing what you've told me about the purpose of this podcast, if that wasn't what I represented. Right. And so it worked. We're attracting you into my life in this way. Like it worked. So I just say all that to say that authentic approach and whatever it's something I do in order to feel the right level of energy about what I'm spending my time on every day. And I lose opportunities because of it. But it's risky initially, but then you find that there's an abundance of opportunity that comes because of it.
It also frees up a lot of energy because you don't have to play a game or you don't have to wear a mask when you're selling versus when you're not. So you put it up front, and if they're not interested, well, then they can work with somebody else.
Yeah, the mask is exhausting. Yeah.
You recently announced on LinkedIn that Lead Baller is the first ever give per lead company. For every lead your team generates for a client, you create 1 hour of work for someone who was formerly incarcerated who has special needs. This is pretty cool. Where did that idea come from?
Again, the way I'm spending my time has to matter when I die. And not only that, it's not just that, okay, I'm going to build a meaningless business and then systematize it. I'm spending my time all day at home with my son, and then my team is spending on things that aren't going to matter when they die. It has to be, the more people I bring into my vision, I feel a responsibility to grant them that same opportunity. And so originally when I started the company, it was just consulting, right? And I built this course. I thought that I was going to sell millions of courses. And for every course that I sold, I would actually donate the course to someone who's coming out of prison who wants to be an entrepreneur so that they can be successful in their business in the area that's probably the most important part of their business, which is just evangelizing it, right? And I thought that was a great idea until I realized I hate selling courses. Like I'd sold them for $2,000 a piece. And then I realized that most people wouldn't even log into it, much less watch the whole thing, and then much less implement it daily, like how I was, in order to get the results that I promoted to people. And that could have not bothered me. But again, energy level, if you're the person doing everything and I'm on the phone with people selling them on my course, knowing that the reality is they're probably not going to do anything with it. They're putting money on their credit card to get no result. And that really bothered me. I kept finding more and more ways to help people. Eventually it was just, all right, just give me the freaking controller, let me do it for you kind of thing. And that's why I built out this agency. But when the agency came into play, we were no longer selling courses and no longer had something to give away. And I've been working on it for a really long time of like, how do we make this matter even more? And by the way, like it's amazing seeing one of my favorite clients ever is Cole Taylor. He went from making $5,000 a month to 6 weeks into working with us, made, I think, $130,000 and has never went backwards. Like he's been making over $100,000 ever since and employing people. And he's a good person. Like the people that join his organization are going to be better because of it. And he's helping a lot of people too in very impactful ways. Like I can feel good with that by itself, but I want to sink my teeth even deeper than that and make it even more meaningful. And the other thing I thought about was a lot of charity, a lot of things that people donate, it doesn't help in the long run. There's things called toxic charity where people just give something away. It creates this gap and it creates dependency, which is not good. I realized the best type of charity is when you either give people education, so they're equipping themselves, or you give them work opportunity. when we're working with clients, sometimes it's the case that I can have a better relationship if they're just paying me per sales call that I get them. Obviously, I have to be much pickier about who we're willing to work with, because then all the things that they could do to fail, it becomes my problem all of a sudden. So here's what we have right now inside of our company. We have Lead Baller, which is the monthly subscription. It's going to be our steady go-to business. Grow and Give is going to be much more and that's the give per lead. That is going to be much more exclusive to people with a lifetime value of at least $30,000 per client. And they're going to pay anywhere between $300 and $1,000 per qualified sales call. And at the very least, for every sales call that's created, they're paying us. We can create an hour of work for someone that is, again, formerly incarcerated or has special needs.
I love it. It's a great goal. It's a great ambition. And we don't necessarily see very frequently this in lead generation marketing companies. It's great that you're being a pioneer here. I know I've taken quite a bit of your time. Just before I let you go, any parting words or advice for our audience?
A lot of people hire companies like ours because they have a little bit extra money laying around and they would rather hire a company to solve their problem. The answer to their problem is so simple that they're overlooking it. I'm very fortunate that through selling knives in people's houses, I learned the importance of playing the numbers game and also to believe in it. When I was making the 40 phone calls, it would sometimes happen where 2 people would answer and I would schedule 0. And then the next day, 20 people answer and I schedule 10. The numbers game never fails. Like, you just stay steady with that. And that's something that is, for the most part, free to do. The answer to most of your problems are already accessible to you. You already have the tools that you need to get what you want. And along the way, you can hire people to help you get there faster. But stop overlooking the simple answers. Oftentimes, the simple answers are the right answers. They're just not easy. So,
all right, Jimmy, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I wish you all the best with Lead Baller. I wish you all the best with your family. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, and as usual, you can find the show notes at stunana.com.